All right, everyone, welcome to another cabin video. So today it's all about upgrading the battery power in the cabin. And for that, I have these two brand new Redodo 165 amp hour 12 volt lithium iron phosphate batteries. So a little bit of history. It's been many years, going on 7 years now since we built the cabin. When we first built it, we would bring a lithium battery up with us when we use the cabin, connect it, and then disconnect it when we left. The problem has always been with lithium batteries is that they cannot be left in the cold. They cannot charge under 32 degrees, otherwise you'll destroy the battery. So technology has changed a lot with batteries in the last few years, and this is the latest state-of-the-art technology that will allow us to leave these lithium batteries up here in the cabin all the time. And this is important because we do not keep this place heated when we're not here. So in one of my last videos, I installed a diesel heater. I've added some Wi-Fi capabilities up here with some long-range Wi-Fi. It's important to have power all the time so I can keep an eye on what's going on. And to do that, I've been using these marine deep cycle sealed batteries under here. So obviously this setup looks a little messy. It's not ideal, but it worked. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to reconfigure these furnace vents a little bit now that I have a little more time. I'm not just trying to get heat going, get them kind of up out of the way, give me more room for my battery installation. So what I'm going to be covering today is why these are great. So real quick, spoiler, they have auto heating. So you can see the size of these. I believe these are group 31. So they're about the same size as one of these batteries. And you only get a 50% depth of discharge with the SLA battery versus technically you can go 100% with a lithium battery. Still not the greatest idea. And you get the true amp hour rating out of the battery. So 165 times 2 or over 300 amp hours of battery. So combined with the 800 watt solar upgrade I recently did, this should be a great setup. Now there's going to be a whole nother video after this one, so make sure you subscribe, where I install a full Victron system in this cabin. But we're going to start with the batteries and kind of a simple setup with just a battery cutoff switch. We'll fuse these, we'll hook them up to a solar charge controller, and we'll get it up and running to where these batteries can function. So how these work is if it gets below 32, or if it gets below freezing, which is around 32 degrees Fahrenheit, 0 degrees Celsius, I think it's a little bit higher, the heaters inside of here come on. So that does use a small amount of power to keep these heated if they're charging when it is below freezing. So you do have to kind of take that into account when you're calculating like how much solar you need, your backup source. So I have a shore power inlet in the cabin. You can see I've got a power strip plugged into it. It just comes in the side out there. That is so I can plug in a generator if I need to, which is what I have running right now just to provide power while I work in here and disconnect the batteries. So also these would be great for like a marine application, which is almost their intended purpose, because they are meant to be able to start engines as well as just act as a deep cycle. So kind of like a true deep cycle replacement. You could start your engine with this, and they do have a reserve cutoff, hence the starting name right there. So if they get down around 25%, they will stop output and leave reserve so you can start the engine. So if they're using the heat to keep it warm, it will just stop and allow the battery to have enough power to restart your engine. So if you're using a marine application, that's important so you're not stranded out in the water. Okay, so remember I said these are modern. So they have an advanced BMS, has low temperature protection, auto heating. They also come with Bluetooth built right in. So as you can see, if we connect to the batteries here, here's the two different batteries. I can click on them. So make sure it's refreshed. So 99% state of charge. You can see it's not using anything. It says capacity 171 amp hours. And if we go through the app here, all cells are balanced. battery is optimal condition, BMS working normally, and it will tell you battery temperature is normal, so the heating is off. And it's the same thing for the other one. So when you are using the battery, it will show you the current in amps, the power usage in watts. Same thing if it's charging, it shows you your voltage. So pretty nice setup. The reason this is really nice is because if you're just using the battery by itself without a larger, like a Victron system, like I said, or even Redodo's own battery monitoring system, you can kind of use this to compare the state of charge from the battery monitoring system to what the batteries are actually reporting themselves. You can also see that they're balanced. So one thing I discovered is that when you use a charger on these, it says that the charging voltage is 14.4 volts. It says plus or minus 2. I found that to get these to really balance and for the state of charge to go all the way to 100 at the end, 14.6 is the optimal absorption voltage. So I'll talk more about that in settings later on when I'm setting up the solar charger and all that. But for now, let's go ahead and get these plopped in. It's actually a pretty simple replacement, but I'm going to be doing all new battery cables. All right, so I've got my solar charger mounted. This is where my solar comes in, runs to a circuit breaker, just so I can turn off the panels going in if I need to. And then I'm using these ferrule crimps. See, they make nice squares which fit perfectly. This crimper tool here. Then I'm using this big heavy 6-gauge wire because it could carry the full 50 amps if that charger can ever put it out. I have a slightly smaller 8-gauge wire going to the panels. That's a different type of wire, but the voltage is higher and the amperage is lower, which is why I can use the 8-gauge coming into the panel here. Alright, so I've got the vents moved up and out of the way. Everything insulated. I've got the batteries put in place. Now I just need to custom make some cables. Alright, so I'm going to be using 2-aught-0 battery cable, which is rated for 280 to 330 amps. Now the max that each one of these can put out is 150. So if you combine that, 300. So well within the range. And again, that's max that these can put out is 150 each. All right, so I make my own battery cables. So I basically just use a razor and strip the cable off. And there is something called a hammer crimper, which is a little cheaper, which you can use. But if you plan on ever making battery cables very often, a good hydraulic crimper is worth its weight in gold. So I can hold that in there. Release the pressure. Got our nice tight crimp. I'll take a piece of heat shrink. Take a torch, shrink it down. Actually helps to use a bigger torch. Alright, so it's nice you can make these in place, or just measure your sizes and then make them all out here. Okay, so I've got the two batteries connected to each other with the 2-0 cable. And then I've got the two batteries connected together over here. You can see I've staggered the output wires on opposite sides. That way it doesn't try to pull more off of one battery. These are battery terminal fuses on both batteries here. And I'll have links for all this stuff in the description. So we fuse both batteries. Then the batteries come over and they run over to a disconnect switch, which is your master on-off switch. Out of the disconnect switch, they go down to this miniature bus bar here. Just need a small one because we're not going to have a lot of power feeds. Now on the negative side, from the battery, it comes over, goes into our smart shunt. This is the Victron Smart Shunt 300. So more than enough for what we're doing up here. This comes in a 3 and a 500. Goes in to the battery side. The load side comes out, goes to the bus bar. So the bus bars are ready to take power off of. They are ready to feed solar into the bus bar. Either way, it runs through that shunt so we can monitor the in and the out of the system. So there'll be more on this in another video that covers everything in detail. This is just a real quick overview. The batteries are now connected and ready to be used. And before you use them, you want to connect them together. Let them be connected for a half hour or so before you use them. It will balance the two batteries to each other. It's always a good idea to, if you're buying multiples, to get them the same age when you put them together like this. Here's our battery disconnect switch, blue C. We've got everything in a line here. All right, so I got these all hooked up yesterday. I let everything run overnight. Got some settings dialed in on the Victron BMS and just topped off the charge and absorption at 14.6 volts. Now the state of charge on the batteries is 100%. So I checked that here. Again, I needed to use that 14.6 volts in absorption to get these to show the full 100% instead of 99. Then what I can do is I go over here to my smart shunt. And you can see it says 100%. If it said something different, I could go to my battery settings and then synchronize to 100%. That gets us started off right. I'll have to run through cycles a few times, see how the battery shunt matches up with the BMS system's calculation of the state of charge. But so far I'm really happy. These things are very powerful. I was running everything in the cabin, including diesel heater, and it barely touches these things. And they're able to recover really quick with the solar charging that I have. And even though it's winter, so I'm only getting about 270 watts in full sun out of 800 right now. All right, so I hope this video is helpful. I just wanted to cover these new batteries and the changes that it's made to our power setup up here at the off-grid cabin. This is a big step forward. Not only does it make it more enjoyable to be up here, but if we had to stay here for a long amount of time, I can be sure that we'll be able to manage our power needs effectively now. These are much safer than the sealed lead acid batteries that were up here. Don't have to worry about any gases if the batteries charge too much, especially being this close to a heater. I'll have links in the description where you can buy these batteries, and then the optional shunt that you can buy and a charger that you can buy. So Redodo also makes a charger that you can use to maintain these batteries that just plugs into 120 volts. So I'll have links for that as well. Again, be sure to subscribe because I'm going to have some follow-up videos in the future on the full power system up here and the long-term review of these batteries. So as always, I appreciate you watching. Until next time, we'll see you later.